Whew, that's a good one. I humbled myself, and that almost in itself sounds not humble, but I think before I came over here, I always said there was the Adam before graduating from college, and there was the Adam after, which I think is more of what I am now. And I don't think they're completely different people, but I think I learned so many things along my journey that I just learned that this isn't all about me. There's other people to help in this world, and there's plenty of other people that need more things than I do. I'm not going to cry or get upset because I can't, or I want the latest pair of boots, shoes, jeans, jacket, hat, whatever it may be, fashion item, when there are people who I've literally come across in playing and coaching who couldn't even afford to put shoes on their feet and would happily wear second-hand, third-hand cleats.
That was Adam Reakes, and welcome back to another edition of the Harris Health and Mind podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Harris Health and Mind podcast. Today's podcast is going to be slightly different. We have a Skype call with Adam and myself discussing all things football, soccer related, and the transitions between living in England to then going to play stateside. If you're someone who's interested to go and coach or play stateside, highly recommend this podcast. Adam is a very knowledgeable guy and very refreshing, as you'll hear in the podcast. Once again, share this with friends and family who may be interested. Stay tuned. Peace. Just obviously wanted to get your story for those that aren't listening. You're from Colchester in the United Kingdom and you moved to America, stateside, started playing. Just sort of start from the beginning and talk about football from a young age and sort of what you wanted to do when you were younger.
Sure. Not really much of a different upbringing than anyone else, too much or too substantially different. Just played football as a kid all the way growing up, obviously against yourself and other kids in the Colchester area growing up around the same age, and always just wanted to be involved in football. Never really crossed my mind to make a career out of it too much. And obviously it was a pipe dream and always something that every kid wants to do, but I never really thought about it too seriously. Just wanted to play and enjoy it and have fun. And I was always around football. My dad and my brother would, as I got older, would start playing and being involved in semi-pro football around the local area, and so I got to feel the vibe and atmosphere of men's football from a young age, and it sort of became contagious, and so I sort of fell in love with the game heavily and never really wanted to leave the game, and as I'm sure you were the same as well. And then sort of got to around 17, 18, and sort of thought that semi-professional football in England was going to take me a certain route, and coaching in England was going to take me a certain route and a certain path, and I wouldn't have minded being on that path, but I thought there was maybe something out there that was a little bit different for me, or something that was going to be a little bit more life-changing than just sort of going in that direction. Something that could maybe be more suited to what I really wanted to get out of the game. And so, I had spoken to a few friends of mine. One went and played in Sweden, one went and played in Australia, and then a contact of mine's cousin went and played in America. He was a few years, I think he was maybe 4 years older than me. And I contacted him. His name was Josh. We spoke for a long time, and Josh wanted to really help me get out. He was just about to graduate his college and finish his college career, and so he had a few contacts and really wanted to get me out there. And he thought that would be a good opportunity for me to sort of go and get my education, which I planned to do in England anyway, get my university degree, and on top of that, play and experience the sort of the American soccer culture, as it were, and get to learn all about that. I think one thing led to another. Sort of the process was fairly short. He had put me in contact with a few coaches, and I went through the clearinghouse route of trying to get all of my documents to the appropriate coaches and the appropriate administrative people, and finally got whittled down that I wasn't allowed to go to an NCAA institution because of the fact that I had finished school, did 2 years of education in college in England, and then I was on like a year off from education, so I had no longer continued my education. That would then be considered under the NCAA ruling a year. What they call over here, the NCAA has they call it the clock. My clock would have started. So what that meant is that I was already a year into my college, American college career. So I now was going to have to sit a year, no matter where I went. I would be ineligible to play for a year. Lots of things were going to be a problem. But it doesn't mean it's the end. It just meant that I had to either go to a junior college, which is only a 2-year school, and then go from somewhere from there, or go to an NAIA school, which is another affiliation of colleges over here. So that's what I chose to do. Spoke to a few schools, a few coaches, and decided that Reinhardt University, which is only about half an hour north of where I am now in Atlanta, would be my choice for a few reasons. And I think anyone who's listening that really wants to try and go and play collegiately in America, I think one of the biggest pieces of information and advice I would give you in terms of picking a school and picking a location is you can look at their record and how many games they've won or lost, or if a pro career is what you're after, you can look at how many players from their program has gone and played professionally, amongst other things, many other things you can look at from a football standpoint. But I think one of the most important things is that you're only on the field for maybe an hour and a half a day, 2 hours a day. The rest of the time you've got to spend on that college campus and at those classes and getting your degree. So the biggest thing for me would be make sure you pick a campus that you think is going to be suitable for you, that has the right facilities for you, has the right layout for you. Is it close enough to a city if that's what you're after, or is it in the middle of nowhere if that's what you're after? Is it close to a beach if that's what you really want? Are you willing to sacrifice other things to get it close to a beach? Whatever it might be, do you want it to be? What do you want your college campus to be? And so make sure that that's important. For me, I wanted it to be not remote and in the middle of nowhere, but quiet, because I know that if I was with if I had a load of distractions, I would never get my degree. I would struggle to focus and knuckle down on the schoolwork. But I wanted it to be close enough to a city or a good area that had things to do. So this ticked all the boxes, and the soccer along with it was fairly substantial. So that was the biggest thing for me was a good location and a good campus. And as soon as I got there, I really enjoyed the whole experience at Reinhardt, and fell in love with it. As soon as I got there, I fell in love with the whole American culture and American college soccer and all of the things that go along with it. I fell in love with and really enjoyed every minute of it. So yeah, that was kind of my story leading up to America anyway. And sort of 17 to 19 years old, that was the period of where I tried to get myself out here, and then got here in 2010.
Decent. Yeah, I want to sort of jump back and then sort of jump forward again on the sort of that gap year that you spoke about, obviously over here. In terms of getting your scholarship, what was the process like? Did you go to sort of open house trials? Because I know some people video their games and send them over. What was the process for you, and how did that sort of come around that you got an offer?
I was very fortunate in that my contact Josh was very friendly and had a lot of contacts with a company called First Point, sorry, and they happened to have a couple of evaluation games. The evaluation games were held in. Let me think, where were they held? In Lilleshall, I think, was one of them. There was one in Histon, I think, as well. There was a few evaluation games, and he managed to just piggyback me onto an evaluation game, get it filmed for some footage, and sort of send that out to coaches over in the States over here. for their sort of viewing. Along with that, Steve Downey, who is a mutual contact of ours, me and you both know well. One of my coaches over here before I left, wrote a recommendation letter, which was sent out to coaches as well. And obviously he's very well qualified over here with an extensive background in the youth game. Over in England. He was very well qualified over in England with an extensive background in the youth game in England. So that, kind of helps as a recommendation. He sort of gave it a fair evaluation of what I was like as a player, which obviously was good, because that meant that coaches got an honest and fair appraisal of what I was like, and they weren't surprised by anything. So, but what I would say is there are certainly companies out there that, and I think they're getting cheaper now, that you could pay a couple of £100 or, anywhere up from a couple of £100 to maybe thousands. I'm not sure on the scale nowadays, but you pay a fee, and for that they kind of handle everything. They invite you to games, they film the games, they put together a highlight package for you, and with that highlight package, that then is sent out to coaches. They then correspond with the coaches for you and sort of start to work out whether you'd be a good fit for that program or not. And then if they kind of think that it is, then they'll pass your details along so that the coach can speak to you personally, and then you can kind of go from there. But it's to give you an honest view on it, it's a shady, kind of very dark, murky waters situation in terms of the agencies that help you get over there. It really is. Unfortunately, unless you do your research, it's tough, because you can't really do it on your own. It's tough without having someone that's been there and done it, or has the idea of what to do and who to contact, and what you're going to need documentation wise, with your grades from high school and college over there, all that kind of stuff, where to go and get the SAT exam, which is your entry exam into college. You have to have that to get into college. Where do you get it? How do you book it? All those kind of things that play in. It becomes really difficult. So if you don't have someone who is there to guide you and give you the advice and help you along the way, it can be really difficult to do it on your own. So realistically, does the agency kind of pay for itself in the end? Yes, a little bit. And they're certainly, if you can find the right company, they're certainly worth the money, as far as I'm concerned. But it does maybe take a little bit of research to look into how much are they offering, or how much are they asking for, and what are they asking for in return.
And with you spoke about the entry exam. So even though, say, you're a grade A student over here, you still have to do an exam before you can get into sort of any college or any university over there. Is that what that entry exam is?
Absolutely. They have two governing bodies for exams. They have the SAT and the ACT, which are two different sort of exams that they have for the governing bodies over here. But both are accepted by almost all schools. They're not really any different, other than the way that they're graded and the way that they're scored. But yeah, every college in America asks that you do an SAT or ACT. And just to give you a bit of background, again, if I'm going to jump back a little bit to myself, I did a year and a half as an assistant coach after I graduated from college, and did so. Then I sat on this side of the desk trying to recruit kids from England or from Germany, from Spain. And you come across a kid and he's a great player, you've watched his video, maybe you speak to him, and it's like, okay, I noticed you haven't got your exam score, your SAT or ACT score in yet. When can I expect you to sit that exam? Oh, do I have to do that? And it's like, unfortunately, yeah. Like every kid, no matter what, you have to do that, because that's just the way that the college system over here governs you. And it's kind of just, it's like an 11 plus in England. You want to go and play or want to go to grammar school in England, you've got to pass the 11 plus. You've got to pass an SAT and ACT. Now the scoring is variant, so you can get a fairly low score, and all that's going to do really in the long run is affect how much academic scholarship money you can be given. So there's athletic scholarship money and academic scholarship money. And, if you have great grades and a great SAT score, you're going to get some academic scholarship money. It's going to mean less money you pay to go to school there. Great. If you don't get that great score and you get an average score, but you have good grades, it means probably less academic scholarship money. If you don't have great grades and you have a poor score, well, now maybe you don't reach the qualifications to be allowed entry into that school. If you do, you're probably not going to get any academic scholarship money. So it's going to probably mean more money on your part. So the smart thing to do would be, if you've got good grades, is to study for a few weeks, get a good score on your SATs or ACTs, and it means less money that you have to either get out on a loan or ask mum and dad for, however you're thinking or planning of paying off those small fees that come along with going to college.
How did you find the sort of exams compared to the exams over here? Do you find it was vastly different or very similar still?
Yeah, it was. I think the SAT which is the one I sat, was incredibly different to anything I tried in England, especially at GCSE level or A level level. It was. So basically, to give you a breakdown, it's 4 parts. So you've got maths and algebra, you have problem solving, you have reading and writing, and then you have creative writing, and they're the kind of 4 parts of the exam. Now, I think if you're an okay student, you'll get the problem solving, and for the most part, you'll probably be able to figure your way out around that. The reading and writing is kind of basic. It kind of asks you to read a passage and then sort of give an example, and then sort of it asks questions based off of that, which is pretty much what most GCSE English classes are. It's not much dissimilar from what you probably would have done in your GCSE English class. And then the creative writing is completely dependent on how good of a writer you are. So if you can, write stories at GCSE level or write papers at GCSE level, essays at GCSE level, I'm sure you'll be fine with that as well. It's not too difficult. The maths that's where I think most English people really struggle, because we don't in England push algebra, and we don't push the level of math and mental arithmetic that America does. They in schools over here, they really force it on kids. You do a maths class every year, algebra and trigonometry and all those kind of things. That is where I would, if I was to give someone advice, I would say spend most of your time is on the mathematics side of things, and work out how because the wording's different to what maybe we're used to in England. All those kind of things are completely different. So with that comes its own set of problems. So you've got to familiarize yourself with their wording, and then you've got to also study and get better at the maths and mental arithmetic side of things. But yeah, definitely different. I mean, it was and then when I came to college here, like the exams and tests that are coming in each week in your classes, you're like, this is nowhere, it could range from, a 5-page questionnaire to a 1-page 5-question pop quiz kind of thing. That it all depends on the teacher, and it's certainly something we're not used to in England, where it's kind of all year work on your coursework with a couple of little maybe a couple of little tests thrown in here or there, and then one big test at the end of the year. In America, it's graded over the year, so you have a little bit of coursework to do, maybe a couple of essays or a project to do, and then maybe you have 4 or 5 quizzes throughout the year that you have to get an accumulative grade on, and that adds to the end of the year grade, and then maybe one final test at the end. And so it's certainly different, and a massive eye opener when you get over here and you see the way that their education system is vastly different to what we were used to in England.
Mm-hmm. Just sort of jumping forwards again, what was that sort of year or 2 years like, when you say, because you had the sort of gap year over here in England, that you sort of couldn't push forwards with the unis and stuff? What was that like? Did you know after that 1 or 2 years that you was going to move on, or was it difficult in the sense that you felt a bit stuck? How was that for you? Do you feel like it was something that there was another goal at the end, or was it just like, oh fuck, like?
No, I mean, I was lucky in that I was young enough and sprightly enough that I was kind of like, oh, it doesn't matter, I didn't really put a lot of weight on it. I just kind of moved on and stayed positive, and just for me at the time, as long as I could get over here, the end goal was to be here. as long as I could do that and start some sort of journey over here, I knew I was going to be happy. So realistically, any setbacks or any things that maybe were knockbacks a little bit, I tried to just shake off and just say, you know what, the ultimate goal is to be over there. So however that happens, it happens. And I hope that it happens in the right manner. And so I just try to keep positive with it. And it can be a little bit like discerning, especially if you go for a college and the guy's like, you really like the college, and then the guy offers you maybe not enough money that you need or something along those lines, or you, like myself, you get knocked back from an eligibility point of view, or so it can definitely be, disconcerting, but it doesn't mean it's over. That's the biggest thing, is it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean that you cannot end up being over here and enjoying your time. It just means that, some avenues are shut off from you, but, it doesn't mean that you can't be, if you want to be a pro player, it doesn't mean you can't go out here and come out here and make your name for yourself and become a pro or whatever it is your end goal. It just means that there are now obstacles in your way, and everyone has obstacles in their way. No one ever really has an easy ride at it, and if you do, then good luck to you, and I really wish you the best. But most normal people are going to have some obstacles to get through, and that's just all expected to be as part of the process, unfortunately.
And like you say, I guess it's those obstacles that are good little learning curves pushing you forward, because that's only going to get tougher the higher you go up.
Absolutely.
Just sort of touch on the transitional period from moving in the UK, playing in the UK as well, like you were speaking about semi-professionally, to then, what was the level like there, the fitness? Just sort of touch on the transitional period and what that was like for you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a massive difference. And people always hear that and they're like, oh, so like, is it easier? And it's like, well, no, not so much. Obviously, I went from playing men's football and against some, fairly decent semi-professional footballers at men's level, 28, 29, 30-year-old players who have had careers in the game at some level, and some good local players as well. But men's football, and then you go to play university or college football over here, and you're playing against 21, 22-year-olds, so people who are maybe only a couple of years older than you. Some who are English, some who are American, some who are Spanish, some who are German. So many different cultures. And that's the one thing I will say about maybe England is we definitely don't have a variant of footballers. I think coming from a footballer perspective, your centre halves, nowadays maybe it's changing, but back then it was like your centre halves do what they need to do, head the ball, kick the ball, goalkeepers be loud and commanding, your fullbacks defend on the outside, midfielders make sure you get on the ball and try and play forward or break up play, wingers get out on the outside, beat your fullback, strikers score, hold it up. It was kind of, everyone had a cookie cutter, kind of boxed in, pigeonholed job. There was no real difference or variance or of type of player. And then you come over here and it's a complete melting pot. There are German players who are 6'4" and they're playing out on the wing. You've got Spanish players who are 5'10" and they're playing as the number 9, or whatever. There's just so many different variants and so many different types of styles and of football that you've never played before, and it completely opened your eyes. In terms of fitness, I mean, obviously, depending on where you go, I'm in the south, I'm in Georgia, so I'm right there in, above Florida, and we get, 10 months out of the year, it's hot and warm and humid, and so something that you're just not used to in England, being able to, or having to, deal with that, and the pace of the game will change. There'll be moments where the pace of the game will be quick, and then there'll be moments where the pace of the game will be slow, and you'll just be kind of be more possession based, keeping the ball, switching the point of attack, trying to play from one side to the other, trying to find holes, because the other team won't come and press you. They'll just sit in and try and hold because it's too hot. They're not going to press for the whole game. They're going to find moments to press. So from that aspect, I mean, completely different. I came home for about 9 months a couple of years ago to sort of get some more coaching experience back home and to do some more qualifications back home. And in that time I played whilst I was back home, just for a few clubs, just to try and keep my foot in the door and play a little bit. And the thing I noticed was when I went back home is, obviously, and I'm sure this will be no surprise to people, that how direct the game is back home, especially at non-league level, because results matter, and I get that. But also just the level of or the lack of level of information from coaches on style of play. There was no real style of play that, and I'm not blaming. I had some great coaches whilst I played back home, really good coaches who, technically and tactically, I'm sure they were, and I know that they were great. Being a good coach and man management, etc., was fantastic. But the difference was just what was absent was, okay, no, there was no pattern play. There was no, when we get the ball here, this is a situation where we want to do this. When we're in this situation, this is what we want to do. This is the type of defending we want to try and do. This is the type of, we want to be a low block, or we want to defend these certain areas. And I want my wingers to start showing the fullbacks inside and stop the ball up the line, anything like that. That was just never really said. And so I think a lot of the teams become much of the same and much of the muchness.
Why do you think that is, though?
That's a really good question. That is a really good question. Culturally, massive. I think that has a massive impact. I think massive thing about England is the football culture. And I think there are people in place at clubs and at leagues who maybe are tunnel visioned about football, and they don't necessarily realise that there is more to see outside of the British Isles in terms of football. And I don't think they understand that, hey, we could really do something if we played a certain way, or we could really do something if we employed a certain type of infrastructure. But then they also don't have the funds. I mean, you wouldn't expect a Haybridge Swifts chairman or a Malden and Tiptree chairman or whoever, any local club in England, you would expect them to maybe out of their own pocket fly over to Spain and see how a Spanish third or fourth division club puts together their infrastructure and maybe get some ideas. You wouldn't expect them to do that. It's doable, but you probably wouldn't expect them to do that. If they did, or they went to Germany, or they went to Spain, or they went to, if they came over here and saw how third or fourth division clubs over here did it, and got to see, okay, they do this, that's a really good idea, and things like that, then maybe there would be more possession-based game. There would be some more subtle nuances to the game that maybe we don't have in the English game. And like I said, I think the non-league game is very, at least from my experience, is very smash and grab. And can we get the result by any means possible? And if we don't get it, it's the players' fault. And if we do win, then I'm the best manager in the world, and the players are incredible, and everything's great, and etc.
It's difficult because I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I think it's strange because you speak about obviously like the setup or the culture of clubs and stuff like that, but I think it ultimately is down to do with like the managers or managers and coaching assistants that they're around, and also the players as well, because you're speaking about from your side, the coaches obviously tactically employing a way or a style of play that they want your team to be able to adapt or adjust to. Whereas I think here in non-league, from me specifically in the Ryman North this year, there hasn't been that many managers that have been sacked. So like the sort of, like the excuse, we've got to get results, so we're going to get sacked. I don't know if it's a case of either managers just being, I wouldn't say too scared. Scared's a bit of a harsh word, but almost just, right, we've got these types of players in, let me just play them and just see what they can do. Or is it a case of, because of the players that are there, even if they have got some big time Charlies in, the managers that are actually there, again, I don't want to use the word scared, but a bit hesitant to go in and sort of almost coach them and say, look, this is what we sort of want to employ and we want to play. Like, whereas for me this year, I'm really lucky at Sudbury. We're playing like 6-7 academy boys, and we're just passing for fun, and that's all throughout the academy. The way that they play in the academy, like we had a game a couple of weeks ago against Malden and Chittree, we lost like 5-1, but our whole structure was, right, the manager put up on the board, we're going to be playing all the short corners that the academy do, and we had all the academy boys telling us what to do, like all the older players, this is what you do on a short corner. Like, we never rehearsed anything, they were just telling us what to do on the game day. And I just think sometimes you have managers where, I don't know if it's a case of they're getting the players in and these players have been around the block, and it's almost like the ego's taken over. So they're like, right, I don't want to get in. I don't want to feel like I can coach them. I don't know.
Right.
I just think because obviously you guys stateside, I don't know, there seems that emphasis on, right, we want to play this way. We've got different types of players, different characters in. We need to get in and sort of cement the style of play. I think it can be done in long league. I just think you've got to go in and just sort of the players that you get in have got to accept it. I think there's a balance between both. I don't know.
Massively. I 100% agree with you. And I think that was one of the things I was reminded of when I played back home for that short period of time a couple of years ago was, the coach could come in with all the correct ideas that me and you just spoke about being able to play and short corners and tactically we're going to defend this way and tactically on the ball we're going to look like this. But ultimately, if the players don't want to buy in, if the players just want to show up, take their 60, 70, 80, 100, 150, 200 quid, take it, go home to their wife, to their kid, whatever, or go out on the lash on the town after the game. If they just want to do that, you can't then implement it. You can't get that to work. And so ultimately, and like you said, with Sudbury, that you bring in the young players and they're now telling the older players. That's great, and that is ultimately what we should be looking for. Not necessarily the younger players telling the older players, but we should have that level of understanding that we're all a team here. I'm not, just because I've played at 5-6 years with so and so and done this and done that, doesn't mean that ultimately you can't be my teammate because we're wearing the same jersey today. We're here for the same goal. Both of us want to win this game. Both of us want what's best for this team. So why can't we do the same goal? Why can't we try things together? But ultimately, I think, like I said, I think it's a cultural thing. But yeah, you're right. I think maybe the manager needs to, or the managers need to have a little bit of empowerment and a little bit of foresight and go, is this guy a cancer to my changing room, or is this group a cancer to my changing room? Am I trying to do this, and are these guys really helping me? Yeah, I know they're great players and they've had great careers in the game and etc. And they're on big money or whatever it is, or the fans love them or whatever. They've been here for 7 years, whatever the excuses might be, but. I'm reading a great book right now. It's Mauricio Pochettino's sort of biography, and in it he noted a diary. It's kind of a big diary of things, and he explains his career in football. And one of the first things he did when he took over as manager of Espanyol was they had a player there. I can't think of the guy's name, Raul something. I can't think of the guy's name, surname. But he was club captain, had been there for 10 years of his career, was, the ultimate Espanyol, Mr. Espanyol. But the first thing that Pochettino recognised as soon as he walked in the door was, this guy's a cancer because he's not doing things the right way anymore. He's taking shortcuts in his career because he thinks he's
comfortable,
done it. He thinks he's done it all. And so the first thing he did was sat him on the bench and played an under-18 or a youth player instead. And funnily enough, over time, the results started to come. I think he mentions in a game where this young kid who I think now still plays for Espanyol or maybe plays for Valencia, I cannot remember the name. I have to go back and read it. He scored 2 goals against Barcelona, which is obviously their massive rival for Espanyol, and they won 2-1. And that was Pochettino's shining moment as Espanyol manager. And they did it with their club captain sat on the bench. And I think, I'm sure we would all remember that when Pochettino came into Tottenham, he started changing things. You're gone, Adel Taarabt, you're gone, Adebayor, you're gone. Yeah. All these players that maybe were considered, cancerous into the team, gone. You're not part of this club anymore. I'm going in this direction, and if you want to be a part of it, great. But you've got to buy into this certain standard. So I think maybe the managers need to empower themselves a little bit, to go back to the original point, empower themselves a little bit in non-league and say, listen, well, I don't have to take crap from Jimmy over here because he's played the game for a couple of years and is earning big money. That's great. I'm sure he'll have a great career somewhere else. But if this is my project, this is the way I want to do it. And I don't want that guy to tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing, or telling the rest of the players they shouldn't be listening to me.
Yeah, for sure. What could you take, or what did you take from non-league into the university game, which you found did work, or that was something that you was like, actually, this has given me a sort of a head up on other people? Was there anything that you was like, you've taken that from non-league into universities?
I mean, it's difficult because you'll find that you come over here, and especially nowadays, and I was probably the start of the boom over here. A lot of the teams we play against have maybe 4 or 5 English guys in their side, and were pretty much the same kind of people as me, if not, if they're not from Essex or Kent or Yorkshire or Manchester, they're all doing the same thing as me. They're all probably decent players in their own right. Released from either academies or decent or were decent non-league players for a year or two as a young kid, and same background. So it's much of the muchness. Same type of players really, with different, obviously different variants, but they've all played at the same sort of level and had the same sort of upbringing as myself. So I wasn't that unique. But if I was to go personally, I think the biggest thing that I brought, I think my coaches from that time would agree, that the biggest thing I've always had not a problem with is being a communicator on the field and an organizer. And I think that played a massive part for me, that I was never afraid to open my mouth on a football pitch and be either the loudest player on the pitch or the most talkative player on the pitch. And I think what developed over here was with my first coach was he was very, very happy for me to be a communicator and an organizer on the field and really, really be the main focal point, but get rid of the nonsense, So when it's a goal kick, do I really need to say, turn around, face the ball, come on, everyone back in, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it was I had developed from playing non-league, that were maybe just habits of just non-league that no one really knew why they were there. People would just say them. People would just use, I think nowadays they're called like non-league shouts, and they've become a bit of a viral thing. But just things like that, were they really necessary? Or could we instead use that voice to be a little bit more organisational and a bit more specific with the information, rather than just general, come on lads? It's more of a general information. Can I turn and face? Can we keep him outside? Are we set here? What's my left back doing, kind of thing? And should we set our line here? Are we good? Everyone all right? Those kind of things. Just a bit more specific with my information. And also I think my first year at Chattanooga, which is a semi-professional club over here. Now they're professional, but they were, when I first started playing for them, they were semi-professional. Loved the fact that I was talking a lot during games, and we played with an out-and-out number 6, an out-and-out defensive midfielder, who now plays in the French 3rd division, Thibaut Charmet, after spending some time in English non-league as well, actually. But he was a phenomenal defender in terms of being able to break up play. And Bill Elliott, my coach at the time, called me aside and just said, listen, we love the fact that you talk as a coaching staff, but what we really want is to stop passes into the striker and stop balls into the striker, and into that second space in front of you. So why don't you just keep talking to Thibaut, your defensive midfielder, and shift him right and left all parts of the game, and just get him to help you. Tell him when the striker's coming to his right, tell him when the striker's coming to his left, tell him when the ball's going on his left, tell him when the ball's going on his right, etc. Just control him. And that opened my eyes massively, because I think I changed from just a general talker to now I know the nuances of organising. Now I'm not just talking for the sake of talking. Now I'm organising. Now I'm helping us win the ball back and things like that. So I think communication was the biggest thing. And I'm sure, you've played with guys who are the loudest players on the pitch, and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. But how much, if you went away from a game and reflected and evaluated and did a self-evaluation, as I've started to do as a coach and as a player, how much of my information was I just talking for the sake of talking? How much of it was, come on in lads, back in, let's win the first one, eh? Second balls here, second balls, those kind of things. Was it just general chit chat, or was I actually making us a better team, and was I actually giving specifics information? So for me, that was the biggest thing, was turning from just a talker into actually an organizer and someone who was being maybe a leader and a coach on the field.
And that's such a great point that you raised. It almost goes back to, your coach identifying what you're good at, but also tweaking it ever so slightly. And like you said now, you're almost organising that player in front of you and giving him the specific detail just by your coach changing that one aspect of your game. I think that's so crucial for a coach to recognise that in players and just give them that little detail and sort of let them figure it out and then let them make those little adjustments to their own game, which are coming on, as opposed to just creating habits either as an individual or as a team. Yeah, just squeeze it up or just hook the ball. Like you're saying, if you was to go away from a game and say, right, as a centre midfielder, what have I actually taken away personally or from anyone else in terms of information? Probably not a lot. But you got someone like you telling you when you got maybe a number 10 behind me, you're telling me to check my left shoulder or maybe drop off 2 yards, or number 10's coming in front of you, then all of a sudden I'm a bit more aware, and no doubt you've probably played a good part in that player progressing, because that's heightened his awareness of going, okay, Ad's talking to me now, I need to check my shoulder, I need to be alert, I need to stay on my toes, or I need to shift left, shift right, I can intercept the ball. That is obviously heightened his awareness, and I'm only suggesting made him a better player from that.
Maybe so, but and he was a fantastic player in his own right. But for myself, that made me. I think that made me a better coach, because, as well as maybe a player, but definitely made me a better coach, because it just opened my eyes to what was. It made me self-evaluate what I was doing. A lot of what I was doing was just because it just became a habit. It just things, playing with non-league players and pro or ex-pros from the 90s back home, or whatever it may have been, some players that I have played with before, it just became a habit. I heard him do it and he's playing and he's doing okay, so I'm going to do it. And you just get into a habit. But realistically, I think every player is an individual. So do we just... And it comes back to what I said about cookie cutter players in non-league and in England. Do you just want to be one of the production line? Do you just want to be the next Adam Reakes or the next Reece Harris, because that's what they've done? So do you want to be that person? And I think I played with a guy who's now a coach in Miami or South Florida. It's a German guy, and I got the fortune of meeting up with him again. A couple of months ago at a convention, coaching convention over here, and we chatted, and he was saying about individuality, player individuality, and being able to assess not just, hey, this is what you have to be like this. If you want to be like this, you've got to be like him, or you've got to be like him. Well, he's not like that person. Everyone is individual. Everyone is different. So why don't we find out what motivates this guy? Why don't we find out what makes this player as good as he is? What can we make him better at, to make him the ultimate player? But let's specify for him. Let's not just say, you've got to do this. If you're the centre-back, you've got to chat. If you're a centre-back, you've got to be good in the air. Or if you blah, 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 blah. Why do we have to generalise? Why can't we make it a little bit more specific for that player? It opened my eyes and made me think about those types of things, where do we have to tell, I like my centre-backs to do this, I like my centre midfielders to do this, I like my wingers to do this? Or can we actually say, you know what, I really want to make this player a good player. Well, I need to figure out what he wants. What does he want as a player? If he wants this and this, okay, let's give it to him. Let's help him with that. What's he good at? Oh, he's good at that. Well, can we develop that to make that more specific for him? If he's good on his left foot but not so good on his right foot, can we maybe make sure that we don't put him in too many situations where he's forced onto his right foot? Or do we do the opposite? Does he relish a challenge? Do we put him on his right foot all the time and tell him to use his right foot all the time? So it just comes down to a bit of thought going into it, and really just doing more than turning up on a Tuesday, Thursday to do a session, or whatever it may be, to do a session, run the session. That was a great session. Everyone had fun. Everyone scored loads of goals, and I'm done. And then turn up on a Saturday and go, right, I hope we win today. We're going to play 4-2-3-1. I really hope we win today. Oh, we didn't. Well, the boys are rubbish. Oh, we did. The boys are excellent. Having a bit more thought behind that and going, okay, that session, did it go well? Well, it went okay. I could have done this better. Could have done that better. He didn't play very well. He was kind of out of it a little bit today. I wonder why that is. Maybe I should talk to him on Thursday and find out why he looked a little bit down. or maybe I should phone him tonight or tomorrow and find out why I looked a little bit down. Goalkeepers looked good, distribution was good from them, yeah, but just a little bit more of of getting in the car and switching off, or and going, yes, that was good, no, that wasn't good, or yes, we won, or oh no, we lost. Just a little bit more foresight behind it, and thinking more on an individual level, and thinking, what could I do for that? What as a coach, thinking, what could I do for that player, rather than what that player should do for me and for the team. Just a little bit of give and take. I think it changes the culture, and it changes the outcome of the team fantastically. And I think no more so can we. I'd love to be able to be a fly on the wall in the England camp, but no more so can we see the results of that than if you watch our current England national team and see the type of performances they put in, and the type of manager that I think Gareth Southgate is to those players. He's moulded and developed that culture, that it is a nurturing development-based squad, with obviously the results being of some importance, and I think hopefully that now my hope is that trickles down. And people start to see that in the Championship, League One, League Two, Conference, etc. And now maybe our non-league culture changes slightly. That would be my hope anyway.
I'd almost go as far as to saying that all he's really doing, and sort of with Pep Guardiola, with certain individuals, is just investing in them, understanding, like you said, what the individual needs, what they require, how they can sort of just use a specific element to make them better, and almost give that to them halfway, and then the players got to find the other half. And all of a sudden, like with Sterling and Pep seems to have, for whatever reason, or him and his coaching staff, have tweaked little things and maybe got in his ear a little bit and gone, look, you could be a brilliant player. Try doing this, or and almost giving him that edge of him figuring out, right, I've just got to try and do this, or let me try and do this, see if it helps my game on. And it has. And I think Southgate's similar in that aspect. He sort of goes away, he doesn't just stick to football modes, he goes away looking at the rugby side of things and the psychology, and maybe picking out, we don't know behind the scenes, but you've obviously got people like Danny Rose and other players that are coming in through the squad, and maybe picking them out and speaking to them individually, and you're seeing the rewards as a collective. Because I think ultimately, if you can invest in players as a coach, players are going to get, give you more in terms of on the field, and other players will buy into that, and there won't be so much of a cancerous gene within the squad, because people will be like, hang on a minute, no, I've got respect for my coach, I want to do this, I want to put the work in, and other people will sort of follow suit. Just sort of going into the living situation in terms of like your campus and everything like that. What was that like when you first moved over? How did you find that in terms of that, coupled with the studying and figuring out obviously the football side of things as well? How was that sort of molded?
I loved it, because I'm not a person that was a kind of a homebody. Wherever I laid my hat was kind of my home. I loved my house, and I loved my parents and my family, etc., my friends from back home. But I was fairly individual and fairly adventurous, so it didn't affect me or anything that much. So as soon as I got over there, it was great, and I loved it. From having that individual aspect of being on my own and having my own sort of rules and stuff like that. It was great. I loved it. Especially at that age, at sort of 18, 19, and being able to go over there and be like, okay, this is my dorm room. No one's there to sort of live with you as a parent, or tell you what to do, or ask you to do things, or help you with them. You just kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I loved that, because it was a way of me growing up. And I've always said to a lot of people that coming over here made me a man. It forced me to be a man quickly, then forced me to grow up quickly. And that's probably one of the biggest aspects, was living on my own figuring out how to do simple things, like figuring out how to do my own laundry, which sounds terrible, and I'm sure
they're different over there, aren't they? What was your washing machine? Because I remember living in New York for 6 months, and we had like a circle top washing machine, and you had to like lift it up, and then there was like 2 different compartments for like the liquid and detergent. My head went. I was like, this is completely different to back home.
Yeah. Simple things, yeah, absolutely. Simple things like that. Mine was the same. We had an industrial laundry room in each dorm block, and yeah, completely different. And but that was more of what I enjoyed, though. I liked it being different because it was just an adventure, it was an experience. But I loved it. I loved the fact that you go, so for our college, you get you have an Eagle card, which was basically your student ID. But on that Eagle card, you had 4 meals a day. And so you go to the cafeteria, you go and get breakfast. I loved that. The whole idea of that was great to me. I think living with other people in your freshman dorms, especially essentially where I went to college, the freshman dorms were shared bathrooms. So everyone had their own dorm, but there was a big bathroom block in the middle with about 20 showers in it, 9 or 10 toilets, urinals, etc. Which you only have to live in them for your freshman year. But it's that was kind of eye-opening, I would say. I don't have a problem with it because, like yourself, I grew up in non-league changing rooms, so showering around other people was never really an issue for me. I'm not really that body conscious or anything like that. It doesn't really affect me. The Americans are a lot more closed off with like being naked or being exposed in front of other people, especially other men, because I think especially where I am in the South, there is maybe that cadence of homosexuality and homophobia, and like anything like that is considered kind of faux pas and taboo. Whereas, again, the English culture is, we find it funny. We'll pretend to be a certain way, or we will be, if we're naked in front of each other, that changing room culture, which I think again is phasing out in England. But that changing room culture from back when I was a younger player was, he didn't really care. It was all laughs and jokes. So who cares at the end of the day? So that didn't really affect me. I got over it. But yeah, I think the whole aspect, and then training in the afternoons or in the mornings, depending on which day it was great. I think maybe the most difficult bit is just balancing it all, being able to balance out. Okay, I've got to work, do my studies, go to class, get up in the morning, go to class, do my studies. I've got to go to train. I've got to go to training. I've got to eat. Then I've got to get back. I've got to do my homework or my required reading for tomorrow's class or for next week's class or whatever it may be, and make sure all of that gets done. And oh, by the way, you've also got to go out of town and travel 7, 8, 9 hours. So you might have to leave on Friday morning. So you're missing class on Friday. So now you've got to get someone to get you the notes for that class, and you've got to do the homework for that class, and all those kind of things. I think there's just the work-life balance, the work play balance. Is probably maybe the toughest bit, but I loved it. I do know, however, and I think what opened my eyes to it was being a coach for a year and a half, assistant coach for a year and a half for the college. What opened my eyes to it was that certain players maybe don't adjust as well, and maybe they are more homebodies, and maybe they were very close with their mum or their mum and dad, and their mum and dad did a lot of things for them in their life, and they struggled intensively with, they struggled a lot with living with other people because maybe they were an only child and didn't have to ever live with anyone else. They struggled a lot with having to sort of feed themselves and get themselves to the cafeteria, and maybe they struggled with the change of diet because they were used to chips and chicken nuggets from back home, or they were used to shepherd's pie, or they were used to whatever it might have been, or they might have been used to Jamaican food or Spanish food,
roast dinner and stuff like that.
Right, roast dinners and stuff like that. And now your diet's changed, and especially considering if you're an athlete, you're a full-time athlete because you're training every day and playing every weekend. Now your diet's got to change, and the coaches are on you, and they're giving you. Or they're in the cafeteria making sure you're not eating 3 slices of pizza from the cafeteria. They're making sure you're eating the pastas or the salads or the fish or whatever it might be that is there on offer for that day, and making sure that you're getting the required nutrients for an athlete, and not just shoveling those things. And that can also be disconcerting to them because when they played at Portsmouth Academy or where they played at Rotherham Academy, they didn't have that kind of level of investment from their coach. Their coach did not say, "Hey, don't eat that." they were allowed to eat whatever they wanted. And now all of a sudden they're being asked to take care of their diet, and that can be disconcerting. So I know that some people really do have a bad or a tough adjustment to it, and I understand that. That's not news to me. But my advice to people would be go in with an open mind. You're young, and you can always, when you get out of college, you can always go back to the way things were if you really want to. But go in with an open mind, and don't shut people out, or don't shut certain ideas out just because you haven't done them before, or certain ways of life out because you haven't done them before. Because I think you're closing yourself off to a lot of really, I was going to say really cool experiences, but that sounds really weird. Really good experiences, really life-changing and life-expanding experiences that will make you a better person. So don't, open mind, going in with everything with an open mind would be my advice to anyone who kind of finds himself in a living situation in an American college.
No, for sure. What you spoke about you being very individual. Has there been, for the move of you over there, has there been any sort of differences in relationships over here? And how have you found that, if so?
I mean, yeah, I have a good core of friends, most of whom you're aware of. Russell, Michael Cheeks, and my buddy Corin Ridgewell as well. They're probably my three longest serving friends from childhood, and from school and stuff that we keep in contact, most weeks and stuff. But I think the old saying goes is you don't ever lose friends, because if they're true friends, if they're true friends or they're special to you, or best friends, then you'll find ways to communicate. And that definitely changed relationships. And maybe we weren't as close as we are or could have been now, or maybe I lost out on experiences with them. But ultimately, I was still at their weddings. They're still going to be at mine. We still keep up with each other. We still, to not sound sober, we still love each other as friends, as pals. It just means that I'm not there every day, and it's it's difficult, but it's certainly not the end of the world, because I make friends over here that are now just as special to me, and I have my own little friend world over here, especially considering that I'm in a city like Atlanta. I have a friend group of about 8 or 9 lads that are all English, and they've all kind of had the same experience, either playing in college or have come over here to coach, and we're all in the footballing world as well, so it kind of helps. So you kind of make your own little additional friend group, but it definitely changes things. And a lot of people say to me over here, like, "Oh, don't you miss home?" And I'm like, I miss the people a little bit. I miss the people, but I don't necessarily miss the place too much. And if I had my way, if I was to win the lottery tomorrow, I would move them all over here in a heartbeat. I would, pay for it, and they could all live close to me. But I'm certainly not going to move back there to rekindle that relationship and make it closer. I think they're happy with me being happy over here, and I'm happy to keep them as friends, lifelong friends, and obviously same with family members, obviously, but just doing it at a distance. And I'm very fortunate that I've done it in this generation where technology allows me to Skype you and FaceTime them and text them and WhatsApp and all that kind of things, that it almost feels like you never miss a beat, because you can update each other every single day. So
for sure. And also, like you spoke about, it's about creating their memories, isn't it? It's something that you need to do for yourself individually, and as long as you're keeping in contact with people, like, you need to make memories for yourself. It's no point you worrying about one of your mates and my relationship's bad, I need to move back home. You need to make sure you're creating those memories for yourself, which is key. Just sort of, I know obviously you spoke about earlier in terms of the journey for matches. What was that like as well? Because over here for us, sort of non-league, I guess, if you're in a local level, you're probably only going an hour and a half for most games. What were the journey times, and what was the toll on the body after the games and before?
Yeah, it was. That was an eye opener, I think, when we had our first away game, and I vividly remember speaking to one of the older English guys that was in our team, and I said, "Who are we playing this weekend?" "Oh, it's so and so." And I said, "Okay, we're away, right?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." "How long's the bus journey?" "I think it's like 6.5 hours." I was like, "Excuse me, 6.5 hours?"
Jeez.
Um, yeah, it's eye opening. But honestly, that's where some of the from a team perspective, that's where some of the best memories are made on those journeys, and some of the stories and stuff. It's fantastic. Sorry, Siri. Honestly, the best times I've ever had were on those buses, and some of the best conversations I've ever had were on those buses. It was a good time. But yeah, it does take a toll on the body. Usually, most coaches will, if you're over a couple of hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, you're probably going to be staying in a hotel, so you're going to probably be going up the day before to shake those cobwebs off, to get rid of that journey off your legs. On the flip side of that, though, most of the time you're coming home straight after the game. So if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff on the Saturday or a 7 o'clock kickoff on the Wednesday or the Friday or whatever, you're coming straight home. So you're probably sleeping on the bus. Now, most of the time with those longer journeys, you're getting a charter bus. So they are, so comfortable, and it's a huge bus, and there's only, usually with away games, you're only taking 18 to 19 players. So you've got a huge bus that's set for 40 people, and there's 19 plus coaching staff, so 25 people on it. So it's only half full. So lots of room to stretch out and laze out and sleep and stuff. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I was very fortunate with Chattanooga when I played there that they're very well funded and they're a fantastic club. And we had a couple of cup games that in the US Open Cup, which is a lot like the English FA Cup, that took us to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that was that was considered a 12-hour drive. And so they were working out the costs of bus versus plane and all that kind of stuff, and flying us over there. And essentially, what they decided to do was we were going to go up 2 days before the game. So we left on a Thursday, and we took it was a really cool experience. We took what's known as a tour bus or a sleeper bus. And so it had like little hubs of beds on each side. It had a sofa and a living area at the back. It had these little cots to sleep in. So everyone had a bed. So there was, a squad of, I think we took 17 to that game. So a squad of 17 players. And then the coaching staff, only one coach was on the bus. The board decided to fly the coaching staff and backroom staff, fly them there, but drive us there because of costs and stuff. But I mean, that was phenomenal. We left in the morning and we I think the Champions League final was on that day or the day before. So I think we had it on repeat on the TV and the thing, so everyone watched it. And then we all retired to our cots, had a mid-afternoon nap. Then we stopped and had lunch. It was an unbelievable day. And after the game, we won on penalties. We got straight on the bus and slept. Everyone slept, and we woke up and we were home, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. And it was incredible because everyone just slept the entire time. So some of those experiences, you're never. You're
not going to get them over here.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, that was something. I've never been on a tour bus before, or a sleeper bus, whatever you want to call them, before until that point, and I never would have done if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to come over here and taken that opportunity and played where I did, and it was awesome. I mean, honestly, one of the best experience. I'll always tell people about that, the sleeper bus. Yeah, it was fantastic, and we all slept in cots and stuff like that, and memory, like you said earlier, memories made, and it's special. But to go back to your original point, yeah, it's tough on the body, tough. Not easy. Foam rollers, lots of water, lots of hydration, rub downs from the physios, essential. But you've got to make it work. Unfortunately, this is a huge country, and you don't quite understand the size of it until you get here. And not everything's on the doorstep. States are quite vast, especially the state of Georgia. Once you get sort of 45 minutes outside of the Atlanta area, you're kind of looking at people living in the middle of nowhere. So that means that colleges aren't going to be scattered around everywhere. So you're going to be finding yourself going 3 or 4 states away to play teams of the equivalent level. That's just the way it was. And but like I said, I wouldn't change it for anything. They were a lot of fun.
What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've had since moving over and applying your trade in the college?
That's a good one. I humbled myself, and that almost in itself sounds not humble, but I think before I came over here, I always said there was the Adam before graduating from college, and there was the Adam after, which I think is more what I am now. And I don't think they're completely different people, but I think I learned so many things along my journey that I just learned that this isn't all about me. There's other people to help in this world, and there's plenty of other people that need more things than I do. I'm not going to cry or get upset because I can't, or I want the latest pair of boots, shoes, jeans, jacket, hat, whatever it may be, fashion item, when there are people who I've literally come across in playing and coaching who couldn't even afford to put shoes on their feet and would happily wear second-hand, third-hand cleats or boots because they just can't afford anything. And that's something, when I went home a couple of years ago to play back home and to coach back home, that's one of the things I was reminding myself of constantly, because it's easy, I think, in England to fall into the trap of materialism 100%. And maybe a little bit of selfishness. And that's something I think I tried to remove myself from as best as I could. And at the expense, I think I think a lot of teammates looked at me differently, or a lot of people I played with or worked with back home maybe looked at me differently. But ultimately for me, this was a journey, and I'm not going to get caught up over small things in my life and chasing the dollar or chasing the next thing in life, when realistically the biggest thing for me was coming over here was there's so much to do in this world, so much to do in our lifetimes that boozing and buying stuff and acting like you're a baller and stuff, that is fantastic. And if that's what your life is, what you want, good for you. And I really hope that you find happiness in that. But I think that's sad, and I think that you see that way, and I think that there is so many more things in life that you can find joy in and experience. So I think just bringing myself back down to earth, because like every 18-year-old in England right now that wants to be Raheem Sterling, or wants to be Harry Kane, or wants to be John Stones, but only from one aspect, probably only wants the attention and the money. I was just like that in a certain way. I was almost exactly the same. But then I think as I grew up over here a little bit and became an adult, I changed that viewpoint massively, and I realised that to be a footballer, it isn't about what you get as a result of it. It's what you do on the field, and your character and your performances and your leadership and all those kind of things that go along with it. Those materialistic things come as a byproduct of that. So to chase those things through football, or to chase those things through your life, to chase the money, to chase the materialistic things, and if the rest of it leading up to that is just a stepping stone, it's not a journey, and it's not that journey itself to get to that isn't the most important bit, then that is quite sad, because unfortunately, when your time comes and you're no longer on this earth, you can't take any of those things with you, and people will only ever see you for having those really nice shoes or for having all that money. So yeah, I think ultimately I changed my outlook on life a lot from coming over here, and maybe remove myself from the little bubble that we have in the UK of what we really see as important. And I watch news, or I look at social media, and I see the amount of people that that watch, these materialistic shows, and I'm sure they're entertaining. The Made in Chelsea's and the Only Way is Essex and all these things. I'm sure they're entertaining. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure they're great to watch. I'm sure people love them and love watching them. But the message that maybe we're given across in those kind of shows, are they really what we want to mold and shape our society to be? And my answer, if it was me looking at it, would be no. But maybe some people will disagree with me.
Oh, very well put, mate. And you can hear in the way that you speak as well, and talking about your experiences there, that has been something that has clearly grounded you and clearly humbled you. And when you're speaking, you're not speaking about the things that you brought over there. You're speaking about all the experiences you had. So that's refreshing to hear, mate, because some people, unfortunately, like you speak about, want to chase the money, want to chase the car or the new house that they can buy. So that's very refreshing to hear.
Absolutely.
For someone who's listening, who obviously wants to go over, who's 17, 18, or even someone who's maybe in the last years of school thinking about looking into go over to the States, what sort of single bit of advice would you give? I know you sort of said some at the start in terms of like the documentation and stuff, but what would be your sort of single piece of advice for someone who's thinking about coming over?
First and foremost, I think I would say do it, and do whatever you can to make it happen, because it is life-changing. It really is. So that would be what I'd say, is definitely do it. And then the other single piece of advice would be, I think what I said earlier, go in with an open mind. Do not come over to 5,000 miles, 3,500, 5,000 miles across the world and expect things to be the same as they were where you just were. And I've seen that so many times where, a lad from the estates in Birmingham, or a lad from the nice part of London or a nice part of Manchester comes over here, and they're like, why isn't everyone wearing the same thing I'm wearing? Why isn't everyone wearing Nike tracksuits with high top Nikes? Why isn't everyone wearing Nike Air Maxes and skinny jeans? Why isn't everyone listening to Skepta and house music? Why isn't everyone driving around in a Mini Cooper Sport? Why isn't everyone driving around in a Range Rover? Things aren't the same. We're in a completely different culture and society over here. You're the minority. Unfortunately, you are the minority. You are the different one. And it doesn't mean you have to change. And I didn't change. I still like the things from my English culture, my English heritage, in terms of style and dress sense and music and other things. I still like those things. But I don't look at Americans weirdly for liking what they like. I just tell them I'm not American. I don't like that. We're different. So yeah, come in with an open mind and realize that things aren't going to be the same as back home. This is a complete change, and you don't have to change yourself to fit in. You don't have to fit in. You can be the minority. You can be the difference. And I think that's the biggest thing for most kids when they come over is they've come from somewhere where they fit the mold of what they're meant to be and what they're meant to look like and what they're meant to act like and talk like. And then they come over and they're not the mold anymore. And they look at everyone else like they're weird. Like, oh, I'm in a cuckoo town here. I'm in weirdo town. It's like, well, no, they're from a different culture and background. They have had a completely different upbringing. You're different. Doesn't make you any weirder. You're different because you come from a different culture. So you're now the minority. You're surrounded by people who aren't the same as you. That's okay though. You can keep your individuality and your culture. Just don't force it on anyone, and don't mock anyone for their difference, because ultimately, if we had if you and myself were in a club, me and you were both playing at Sudbury together, and we were in with all the English boys, and all of a sudden an American guy walks in who's a great player, and he walks into our changing rooms for training or for a game, and he's wearing something different, and he listens to a different type of music, and his attitude towards the game is different. What might he be thinking? Because he's different, and would the people make fun of him? Obviously, in a gentle way, with an arm around the shoulder. I'm sure people would do that. But would we look at him weirdly? I'm sure we probably would. Well, that's now you. You're now that person. And just think, how would you want that person to react, and how would you want that person to be? Would you like that person to hate all of you because you're different, or would you want that person to embrace the fact that they're different from you and just be friendly no matter regardless, and just be a teammate? Well, that's what people want, and you can do that. So open mind, massively big thing. Go in with an open mind. Don't be closed-minded. Not everything revolves around your Essex way of life or your Birmingham way of life or whatever it is. Not everything revolves around that. It's completely different culture, and that's okay. Just don't also go and buy camo and try and join in, because then you look silly.
Yeah, I think it's for sure what you're saying is definitely key. And the word you say there, embracing, I think that's massive. Like over time, like even when I was working over in New Jersey for 6 months, over time you gradually find things that you do like about the culture or the environment you're in, or even the music, because you're playing in radios on cars now, and they're playing southern music, and then you're listening to that type of music, and then by the time you get back home, you find that you play that or you listen to it just by chance, or if that's on, you don't turn it off. And if you can embrace the culture, you'll have a much, I think, easier time to adjust, as opposed to sort of almost fighting it and almost, like you're saying, looking at people like, oh, why are they weird, and stuff like that. So I think that's massively key, and for sure embracement is the way forward, I think. Just to sort of wrap this up, how's your life now? How's things with you?
I mean, I can't complain. Yeah, I'm very. I want to avoid using the word blessed. I'm very fortunate that I'm now a director at a youth club, Inter Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta. Doing what I love. I'm coaching young kids to from anywhere from sort of 7 and 8. We have in our program all the way up to 18, 19. We are a feeder club to the new in town. I think they're in their 3rd season now, Atlanta United MLS team, who are, I mean, if you're not aware of them, Google them and YouTube them. They are uber successful in terms of popularity. They have 75,000 people come to their home games. It is incredible. And to see the rise of that club has been fantastic from a front row seat. I have friends now who work for them, and hopefully one day, I hope my employer doesn't hear this, but hopefully one day I'll be there as well. But I've loved it, honestly. My whole journey's led up to this point of just getting kids prepared for college, teaching them the game, being involved in kids' lives, and trying to help them become a better soccer player and a better person. So career-wise, I'm exactly where I want to be, making a career out of soccer. I've just applied to have my US soccer tutorage or tutor license, so that I can teach coaching licenses over here. So hopefully I'll be hearing back from them soon about being able to go onto my tutor courses, so that I can become a US soccer tutor, which is just the same as becoming an FA tutor in England, being able to teach the level 1, level 2, etc. So hopefully I'll be hearing back from that, which will be another little additional project for me. I still play. I play in the local semi-pro league here when I can, and then I play in the semi-pro levels in the summer as well, just to try and keep my foot in the door. I try and stay fit as much as I can, and really keep my foot in the door playing, because I know that I'll miss it when I can't. And I'm getting married in May, that will make me a green card holder in America, which means I'll be a permanent citizen, or permanent resident. Sorry, not permanent citizen. I'll be a permanent resident. So I'll no longer have to deal with the US Embassy in terms of visas and stuff like that, which has its own level of difficulty. So that will no longer be an issue for me and a problem for me, and I'll kind of be looking forward to the rest of my life in America, which I've kind of been trying to do for the last couple of years. So and that's kind of the most important thing for me was being able to make sure I secured my future here, because I didn't want to have to jump back and forth from England to over here and kind of be here on a temporary basis the whole time. I wanted to have a full fix on the future, and making sure that I was able to, from a personal perspective, maybe start a family one day, because that's a goal of mine personally, and also career-wise, to start really putting my foot on the ladder and climbing up the ranks in terms of a coach. So that now is secured, hopefully, for me when the marriage and stuff goes through and I start the process of applying for a green card and doing all of that stuff. That's a whole bucket of challenges. But yeah, super busy, but love my lifestyle over here. Atlanta is a fantastic city. I really can't speak highly of it enough. It has incredible diversity. I think if anyone from England is even aware of any Atlanta culture, it would be their R&B and hip hop culture, which is still prominent to this day. But more recently, it's more of a tech city because Google and Amazon are starting to set up bases here. Porsche just opened their first or their second United States headquarters here. Mercedes-Benz have their United States headquarters here. So it's becoming more of a tech culture now, with a lot of money flying around the city, but also with that becomes a lot of really cool things to do, concerts and shows and festivals, and there's restaurants, all kinds of restaurants. I think anywhere within a half an hour drive of where I live, I can go to any kind of cuisine from any part of the world. You know, you name it, it's there. Caribbean, English, you know, Chinese, Indian, Mexican, Spanish, French. It's all there. So it's a real hub of a city. So I really love my life here as well. So I don't plan on leaving anytime soon.
Decent, mate. I wish you all the happiness. The way you speak's refreshing as well to hear, and I appreciate you for coming on, mate. And
absolutely, my absolute pleasure, mate.
Hope the wedding goes well as well.
Oh, thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. I really, just from my perspective, for anyone listening, I know that Reakes is a top man and is definitely someone to go to for any life advice. And I think I spoke to Reakes recently about me trying to change my diet after seeing a lot of the things he's done, and I'm in the process of doing that now. I'm not always 100% strict, but I'm certainly on the process of trying to change to a bit more of a plant-based diet. So I appreciate that from you, and I really hope that you do that for more other people, because that's changed my life. So I want to thank you for that, and I think this podcasting you're doing is great as well, and I wish you all the happiness with it and best with it, mate.
No, I appreciate that, mate. Don't worry about being strict. You just got to enjoy yourself, and whenever things come for you, they come for you. You just got to enjoy it, like your life. You just got to enjoy, you know, spending time with yourself, making sure you're happy, and you know, other things will come. But I appreciate it. Top man for coming on, Reakesy.
No worries, mate. I appreciate it, Reakes. Thank you, pal.
No worries. Take care, mate.
Thanks, mate. Ta-da.
As always, guys, really appreciate the feedback that people are giving at the moment, both to myself and the podcast guests that come on. Really appreciate it. If you can keep spreading the message by sharing the podcasts and sort of promoting them on your social medias, it helps massively. Like I said before, we just don't know who it may touch, and especially for something like this, giving the opportunity for someone to go in, apply their trade in another country is crucial. So yeah, once again, if you can keep that support up, much appreciated. More podcasts are going to be to follow. Got some exciting stuff again, so stay tuned and keep plugging the message across to others. Appreciate it. Peace.